You don't have to worry about who else shows up, you know. So I appreciate being back here where it all begins again. I've been in Iowa many times over the years, back long before I ever thought I'd be running for President of the United States. I was here for Jim Nussel and a fellow by the name of Charlie Grassley, who he really needed my help. I pulled him through a time or two. Others out here, because I believe in what they were doing. I believe in what the party was doing. I mean, this goes back a long way with me. My folks were Democrats growing up, thought Franklin Roosevelt had saved their lives out on the farm. And came to town, and Dad was involved a little bit in Democratic politics. I went off to school, and as young people are wont to do sometimes when they go off to school, they get these wild, crazy ideas in their head. And I read Barry Goldwater's Conscience of a Conservative, and I was hooked from there on out. I came back home, started the first Young Republican Club in my little hometown, and have been there ever since. Not only because I thought it was good for a young person to have that kind of opportunity in the freest country that there ever was, but it was good for my country. It was good for my country. And that I could do what my ancestors had done for me, and that is leave this place a little better than when we found it. But I'm here today because I'm concerned about my party and my country. Because we got an uphill battle facing us. I was just reading the other day that no party's elected president for 3 elections in a row except once in 50 years. The pendulum swings against us. The economy, they say next year may have a little downturn. It goes up and down, you know. The timing is important sometimes. Not much you can do about that. We know that the popularity polls are not good for us as a party right now. But we need to keep in mind the stakes that we're dealing with here. That's what I keep in mind. That's what I had in mind when I left my home and came out on the campaign trail. Because I had a family that understood what was at stake too. And that is, if we don't win this next election, the Democrat Party and those nominees, whoever they are, Hillary Clinton or anybody else, are going to take us down the road of a welfare state and weaker national defense. And we can't let that happen. That's what all this is about. And we're going to have to do some things bigger and better and different than what we've done in times past. We're going to have to take those sound conservative principles that we've always believed in and have a candidate who can take those conservative principles, stick to them, and still get independent-minded folks to vote for them because they, too, are interested in what's best for our country. That's what I took to the people of Tennessee when I first ran for office. I wasn't a professional politician. I was doing some pretty interesting things. I thought, you know, I even stumbled into the movie business. We took on as a lawyer, I represented a woman, we took on a state corrupt administration that was selling pardons and paroles out of the governor's office. Beat them in court. They made a movie about it and wound up playing myself in the movie. Our courtroom scene was a big part of it. I figured they couldn't tell me I was doing it wrong by playing myself. But they did a time or two. So every time they needed somebody that worked cheap, they'd call me from time to time. So I was enjoying all of that, you know, but every once in a while a man's got to ask himself, are you at your highest and best use? Are you doing what you need to be doing? Can your country use you for a period of time? So I hitched it up, got in my pickup truck. We took out across the state for my first political office. I put term limits on myself. I was running against a popular incumbent congressman. He'd been there about 12 years. And poll numbers were down. We started 20 points down. And everybody was saying, well, you know, Fred's just, I don't know, you know, he's not very high in the polls. And come to find out, people weren't paying much attention until about September, October of that election year. And when they did pay attention, they had paid attention in droves. And we went from 20 points down to 20 points ahead on election night. And we did it on the basis of talking about what made this country great. What made this country the greatest and the freest and the most prosperous and the most powerful in the history of the world. It had to do with the belief in strong national defense, a belief in the liberty that our founding fathers talked about when they put out the Declaration of Independence and reminded us that our basic rights don't come from government, they come from God. When they set forth the Constitution of the United States and divided the power out because they didn't want too much power in too few hands. So we took that, and on that foundation, we built a nation based on the rule of law and a market economy, free competition among free people. So we got elected, and we got to go to Washington and put those ideals into effect. And I and my friends who got elected that year came in, we took over the House, we took over the Senate. Because we found out that what we believe, the American people believe too, if you'd give them a chance. So we were able to pass 4 tax cuts the time I was in there. We were able to balance the budget 4 years. We were able to pass welfare reform. We were able to defend Second Amendment rights. We were able to compile each of us strong pro-life voting record while they were there. In my case, it was 100% in the 8 years that I was there. I don't think the American people have changed their mind about those views. We need to make sure that the American people understand that we haven't changed our mind about them either, and that we can take those strong principles that made us a great nation and apply them to whatever problems, whatever issues we have today. You know, this illegal immigration issue is a rule of law issue, and it's a national security issue both. It's not only unfair to the people who play by the rules, but it's dangerous in an era of a suitcase bomb where a small amount of material could be used to destroy an entire city. That's what's at stake here. While we here continue to try to make it easier and more inviting for people to come through our porous borders by setting up things like sanctuary cities and giving them driver's licenses and things of that nature that make no sense at all. That's why I came out with a strong immigration plan in detail that said, you're not going to get any federal money, you sanctuary cities. You're not going to get any discretionary money that you're used to getting if you continue violating the law by doing that. So the principles remain the same, only the issues change. When we look at health care reform, there's only 2 ways to go. We need to, first of all, remember we got the best health care in the world. Let's don't mess that up. Let's don't let the federal government mess that up. We're all living longer and healthier lives. Now, we ought to be able to get that same level of health care at a cheaper price. That's what it amounts to. It's a cost issue. If you're going to control costs, there's 2 ways to do that. You can let the government come in and take it over and have the same results that governments around the world have had when they've tried to do the same thing. And ours is no more competent than theirs are to do that. Dysfunctional at every level in terms of carrying out basic government functions. Or you can put the power in the hands of the people and rearrange your tax code to where it ought to be so the inducements are right and individuals are in a position to make those decisions for themselves. What's that based upon? Freedom, economic choice, the marketplace. Why do we think that that works for us in 95% of the cases? Why do we think that that's been good for us over the years? Why do you think that we're the most prosperous nation in the history of the world? Which leads us to become the strongest in the history of the world, which leads us to sacrifice more blood for the freedom of other people than all the other nations combined. Why does that happen? Why do we want to apply those principles to 95% of things and then take something like a new issue, supposedly like health care costs, and say, well, I won't work on that? Of course it will. Of course it will. Taking today's issues and applying our old principles. One of the things that concerns me most if we lose this next election is going to be something that's been near and dear to my heart for a long time. Now, we lawyers take a lot of flack just for being lawyers, and a lot of it's richly deserved. But you can do a lot of things. Do a lot of things as a lawyer. Do a lot of good things sometimes. When we took on that case in Tennessee, that was a good thing. I couldn't have done that. She couldn't have done that without a lawyer. And I couldn't have done that without the court system.